July 20, 1969. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin are moments away from making history. Suddenly, the silence is broken by a piercing alarm. 12:02. The computer is overloaded. In that moment, the mission and the lives of the crew didn't depend on the engines, but on a revolutionary way of thinking. To understand why this alarm didn't end in a failure, we have to go back. Because reaching the moon wasn't just an act of courage, it was a supreme test of technology. The 1960s were a decade of rapid technological innovation. As computers shrank and circuits miniaturized, humanity began sending machines further into the solar system. This was the testbed for deep space technology, before we trusted it with a human crew. In 1964, Mariner flew past Mars and returned the first images of another planet's surface. Its onboard computer executed a pre-planned sequence, while engineers on Earth controlled the mission from millions of miles away. It was a clear demonstration that the technology could operate reliably far from Earth. For missions near Earth, signal delays were acceptable, but for the Moon, especially with human lives on board, that pause could be fatal. Some engineers began designing spacecraft that could operate in complete silence when contact with Earth was impossible. On the Soviet side, the Zond probes carried one of the most advanced computers of the time, the Argon 11S. When communication was impossible, such as on the far side of the Moon, it guided the spacecraft autonomously, corrected its trajectory, and managed the most dangerous phase of the mission, re-entry. To survive failure, three identical computers work in parallel, constantly checking one another, an early demonstration of using backup systems in space. In its own way, Argon was revolutionary, but despite its sophistication, it was never trusted with a human crew. And that hesitation revealed the real challenge ahead. The problem was no longer whether computers could function in space, but how much we could trust them with our lives. In 1968, humanity's view of space exploration changed forever. Apollo 8 became the first crew spacecraft to orbit the Moon. The mission was a bold test. Astronauts survived the journey, and the spacecraft navigation and guidance systems proved they could function in lunar orbit. At the heart of this achievement was the Apollo guidance computer. Its main purpose was simple: to make decisions when humans couldn't react fast enough and to act independently when communication with Earth wasn't possible. After the era of vacuum tubes and early transistor-based computers, the AGC became the first computer in space to use integrated circuits, a technology still in its infancy at the time, but now the ancestor of the chips in any phone or laptop today. To make the Apollo guidance computer a reality, NASA became the world's most significant technology customer. Since its conception in the early 1960s, the agency was purchasing 60% of all integrated circuits produced in the United States. This massive demand forced manufacturers to perfect their production lines, causing the price of a single chip to plummet from $1,000 to just a few dollars in less than a decade. In many ways, reaching for the Moon didn't just advance space exploration. It fundamentally reshaped the commercial technology landscape back on Earth. But in space, even the most advanced hardware wasn't enough to guarantee survival. To protect the lives of the astronauts, Apollo's system featured layers of backup, including a completely separate computer designed to take over if the main system failed. Yet hardware, no matter how many backups we have, it's only half of the story. The other half was written by Margaret Hamilton. Hamilton led the software engineering division at MIT. Back then, software engineering wasn't even a recognized field. She actually coined the term to give her team the respect they deserved. The AGC's memory was hardwired and it was called core rope memory. Women in factories literally wove copper wires through magnetic rings. A wire through a ring was a 1, a wire around it was a 0. It was literally LOL memory, little old lady memory as the engineers called it. It couldn't be erased, it couldn't crash. And this leads us back to the 1202 alarm. As Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were descending toward the lunar surface, the radar was flooding the computer with too much data. In most computers of that era, an overload meant a total crash. But Hamilton and her team had designed something revolutionary, a concept called priority scheduling. She anticipated that the computer might get overwhelmed. She programmed it to recognize which tasks were nice to have, like the radar data, and which were vital for survival, like the landing thrusters. When the 1202 alarm hit, the computer didn't die. It simply rebooted its low priority tasks and kept the engines firing. The crew was able to continue their mission, although they still had an alarm on board. Without Margaret Hamilton's smart software, the Apollo 11 mission would have been an abort, but she prepared the machine with a function to prioritize tasks, a concept we still use in every operating system today. And as Apollo 11 descended toward the moon, humans trusted the computer with their lives.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.